How are you guys doing today? My name is Francis Nguyen, and today I'm going to be talking about high flow nasal cannula. So keep watching. So high flow nasal cannula, this is one of our less invasive high flow oxygen devices that we can use on your patients before they're almost about to be going onto a vent. High flow oxygen devices that we would use after this would probably be something like a continuous positive airway pressure device, a CPAP, or a bi-level positive airway pressure, which is a BiPAP. Both require a nasal oral mask. It's not very comfortable. But a high flow nasal cannula is much more comfortable than that, and definitely more comfortable than a mechanical ventilator because you'll have a endotracheal tube down your epiglottis. So this device has its own niche use in our more critically ill patients. As more research is done, it does deliver some sort of positive airway pressure. They say on average you'll get about 1 centimeter of pressure per 10 liters of flow you're delivering through this device. However, it hasn't been statistically proven positive yet. There are conflicting studies, so don't take my word for it, but this is just what's current in literature. This cannula, with its sheer high pressures that it can deliver, will oftentimes keep our critically ill patients off the vent, such as our COPD, asthmatics. So this device is considered high flow, meaning it is able to meet all the inspiratory demands of our patient. And so I mean, it doesn't matter what the patient's doing, we can deliver 30, 40, 50, even as high as 60 liters per minute on our flow meters for this device. Some operating parameters for this, so there isn't really a set number, just that there is a maximum, which is about 60 liters per minute. So you can go anywhere from 20 liters per minute, 30, 40, 50, 60. As FiO2 is concerned, there's no range on this either. It's anywhere from 21% all the way to 100%. Just depends what you have set on your oxygen blender, which I'll show you in a minute to set up this device. So let me go grab all the stuff and put it all on the table for you, and I'll explain one by one. All right, so this is a pretty hefty shopping list of supplies. But typically this device is set up already. The only parts that you're usually resetting back up is their disposable portions of this. So I'll explain this one by one, but I'll tell you everything you need to actually set one up fresh on a pole like this. Okay, so you're gonna need an OptiFlow or some sort of high flow nasal cannula system based on manufacturer. So here you have one high flow. You have your Fisher and Paykel heaters. This is an older version. Most of your newer versions now are just button operated and not dial operated, but the device design is basically almost the same, so nothing hard here. You're gonna need a high flow meter attached to an oxygen blender. So this is not the right flow meter because you need one that's capable of going up to 60 liters per minute, but just for showing something, this is what it would typically look like. And you have your oxygen blender right here. You have your dial to control your oxygen concentrations, FiO2s from 21 all the way up to 100%. And then you have your oxygen lines, which will plug into your wall source right here. Green for your oxygen and yellow for your air. Okay, so that's one component. Now you'll need an oxygen analyzer, which these are usually tied in line with your oxygen blender that I just showed you. So these usually aren't removed. They may be removed for cleaning, but then they'll be put right back. So it's not really a disposable piece, it's reused over and over. We're also missing, because we don't have it in the lab, but I had to piece it together. So you have a dry side to your circuit, a wet side to your circuit, and you have your humidifier chamber, which will have all your water in it as it's being heated and delivered toward the patient with the flow. Okay, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. You'll need your sterile water bag as shown here. These, of course, are changed out probably either once a day or even 2 times, depending on the flows you're getting. And then you'll also need a standard medical pole like this to attach everything to. So let's get more in close, and I'll show you just briefly how some of this stuff works. All right, so we're going to get a little bit technical with this one, but I'm just going to show you briefly what each device does. Now this is your oxygen blender. You see you have your dial in the front here. You can dial anywhere from say 21% on the bottom, and you can peg it all the way out to 100% right here. So this will control your air oxygen mix, which is coming from the wall, which will hook up with these hoses. Okay, you have your green, which, you know, this is your diameter index safety system hookups. So you have a green for your oxygen and your yellow for your medical air. So obviously they aren't interchangeable because they're different size diameters, which why it's called the diameter index safety system. And then you also have your high flow meter. Now this is not a high flow meter, but if we did have one, it would be one that can go all the way up to 60 liters per minute. So so that's your first component. We're going to trace the flow from the wall. This is probably the best advice that you can get for setting up any device in the hospital. If you can trace the flow, you can almost set up any device. Okay, and then next we have your oxygen analyzer. Now typically this, usually the probe on this oxygen analyzer will probably sit somewhere on the bottom where the outlet is. And it'll be sampling the oxygen that's passing through the line as it's going in. So as it's going in, you'll get a live readout of what kind of FiO2 you're getting from your blender, because the blender may be plus or minus 1%, just depends on how often they've been calibrated. Okay, and then from here, your line will connect to your dry side circuit. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. So your dry side circuits, it's a little shorter circuit, so this will come from your line on your blender. This will connect, as I'll show you right here. So let me remove this cap right here for your humidifier chamber here. So this will connect to your dry side of your chamber for your humidifier. Okay, and then this will be sitting on top of your heater. So it'll be like this. Let me zoom back a little bit so you can see this. So as you can see, one side will be coming off of your blender into your heater, and then one side will simply come from here. So come from your wet side, which is your oxygen has already picked up your humidity, is traveling toward the patient. It's going to go down this long circuit that we have here, and this will be connected to your high flow nasal cannula, which is just connected like so with your connector adapter on the end here. See if you can see that, and I'll try to show it to you up close. So you have your nasal cannula portion right here, and then you have, you know, the nasal cannula running from your wet side of your humidifier. That's pretty much it. Other than that, you know, you're using your straps to secure this to the back of the patient's head, obviously around the ears and to the back of the head. And this is a much older design, but Fisher & Paykel has improved on this, and they have now, and I'll show this to you later when we get some more footage of this, has a little clip that clips to a patient's gown, so it keeps this more secure. The cannula portion will not be, I guess, you know, pulling on their nose too much, so you're taking the weight of the circuit off of the patient, and just clipping it to their gown, so at least it doesn't feel too heavy on their face. So, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to actually do something a little different. Instead, I'm gonna go over to Grady down the street from our lab. I'm gonna see if they'll allow me to just film a short portion of their high flow nasal cannula setup, and then you can better visualize exactly what I'm talking about. So stay tuned for the next couple of seconds and I'll transition over. Alright, so we've made it over to Grady. Here is a high flow nasal cannula setup as it is on the pole. So we got, so right here we have your high flow meter, which is already pre-attached to your blender, and then you have your oxygen analyzer, which this is the probe that sits in line, so you can follow the flow here. So you follow the flow out, this is coming out from your blender. Out to your dry side of your circuit, down to your humidifier chamber, and then you're going to have your wet side, which is a longer circuit, as you can see here, and it goes all the way up and it ends at here. Now, one thing to note with new Fisher and Paykel models, they utilize these heater circuits. So this is a temp probe, okay? Now this temp probe will monitor your temps from the point where it hits the patient and also at the point where it's hitting the humidifier. So it can maintain your relative humidity, okay? So like I said, your new Fisher and Paykel heaters, they just operate with 3 buttons. One's to silence, one is to change your mode from invasive to non-invasive. Now, settings for this device, obviously you're going to be using non-invasive mode. For this device, and then you're going to have your on-off button right here, okay? And if you go to the side here, you can see you have your heater wires, which is just your sensors, and they go in line in only certain places. One goes on the end here. This is your sensor for turning on your heater wire inside your circuit. And then this gray wire is the one that controls your temps, okay? Now, I'm not going to connect this to a high flow nasal cannula because I don't want to waste their money. I want to leave this disconnected. So this is your high flow nasal cannula setup. Okay, now it looks relatively the same as what we have in the lab, and if you notice this little blue piece right here, it kind of clamps together. So what you do with that is you will wrap that ring around your corrugated tubing circuit like this right here, like to say the long portion next to the patient, somewhere up here maybe, like really close to where it connects to your high flow, and that blue clip will connect or will clip on to your patient's gown, so that way your inspiratory limb is not dragging on their nose, you know, so it makes the patient more comfortable. They're more able to tolerate the high flow nasal cannula. And of course you don't want to forget your water, which comes in big bags like this, and you always want to make sure there's sterile water for inhalation. So that's something you want to consider for your setups. You don't want to just shoot normal saline down into these humidifiers. That's not what they're designed for. And lastly, let's see, oh, and right here on the back here, you'll see you have this little plastic puncture device. This is attached to your humidifier chamber. So what this does is pokes into the bottom of your water bag, and then this will gradually drip water into your chamber, delivering humidity all times to the patient. They last quite a long time, but on average I'd say about once a day they need to be changed out. So I'm going to put this back in here, and that's it. That's your full setup. So for this device, you actually only have one line, which is just your oxygen line, your diameter index safety system, as you see right here. So you just plug this into your wall source, tighten, turn on your oxygen analyzer, titrate your O2 level with these blender knobs on the side, O2 versus air, titrate your flow right here. You can see it goes all the way up to 60 liters per minute. Let me get that out of the way. And that's it. That's it. That's all there is to this device. The only pieces that you'll probably be removing will be this humidifier chamber, these circuits, but do not throw away your heater wires. And that's it. That's all your setup. Okay, so I'm just going to make this short because I didn't do my mannequin piece. Now you can see the proper orientation. The strap obviously fits around the patient's face, over the ear, to the back of the head there. Now what you're going to notice is that, yes, this one is the older OptiFlow. It has the necklace, so it bears the weight of the circuit, so it's not pulling on the patient's nares. So what's different with the newer ones is that instead of having the necklace, it just has the little clip that I showed you in the previous clip here from Grady, and you would just clip that around the adapter piece, near your adapter piece part of your cannula, and you would clip it to the gown, and that's it. That's pretty much all there is to securing that to the patient. So now let's get back to the conclusion segment. So just to give you a short summary of using a high flow nasal cannula, it is one of our high flow oxygen devices. However, also what makes it unique is that it can deliver humidity as well, so our patient's airway doesn't dry out, they don't plug off with mucus. It's very comfortable to wear, and advantage, definitely patients can talk, they can eat, so it's definitely one of our more comfortable devices. Again, it can deliver anywhere from 21 to 100%. It just depends on what's set on your FiO2 on the blender, and whatever you set as far as flow goes. So it's a very versatile device. Again, it's probably one of our more intense high flow oxygen devices, but not quite as intense as our more invasive ones like our CPAPs, our BiPAPs, or a mechanical ventilator. So it's a great device. It's a great last line to keep a patient off the mechanical ventilator, because once we've gone to that option, then the patient's really, really sick and it's going to take a while to recover. So hey, you'll see this, maybe you won't, but in case you do, you'll be prepared to set this up whenever your preceptors at the hospital ask you, hey, do you know how to set this up? And you can confidently say yes. So remember, study hard and breathe easy.